All right, good morning.
Morning.
Give it just another minute to let people kind of filter in. Then we'll go ahead and get started. No yawning on camera. All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to ECE 164. Today, what I'd like to do is go over the syllabus and kind of discuss a little bit about the class format. And then we can have a chance to answer any questions and kind of get logistics out of the way. All right, so I've posted everything to Canvas, but I'll just quickly go over the syllabus here. So this is ECE 164. This is a class that's going to discuss analog integrated circuit design. It's meant to be positioned kind of between an undergraduate class and your first graduate class. So, looking at the class, it's about 50-50 split between undergrads and grads currently, which is pretty typical for what we have in this class historically. So our class time is going to be Tuesday, Thursday, 11 to 12:20. However, I know that this is not a great time for a lot of our students that are not physically present in the US. For students that are in Europe and in particular Asia, this is very late or very early in the morning. And so what I'm going to do for the Tuesday, Thursday is instead, I'm going to pre-record all of the lectures. And so these are posted on Canvas along with my slides. And so we won't actually ever meet after today again on Tuesday or Thursday at this time. Instead, what I will do is I will host discussion section from 4 to 5 p.m. on Wednesday, which is a little bit better time for globally, all of the students. This will still also be recorded, but it's going to be live, and that's that I want to have the chance to interact with you guys. I want you to have the chance to answer questions about the lecture rather than just have to watch these lectures. And so I will post the 2 lectures for each week early on in that week, and with the hope that you guys will have a chance to watch them before Wednesday when we meet. And then Wednesday, this will be a live recorded session if you can't make it, but we can do question and answer on the lectures to start, and then I will have a little bit of other ancillary material that I'll discuss. So a little bit about me. My name's Professor Hall. I'm in the ECE department. I've been here for almost 10 years now. I guess historically I did my graduate studies at Stanford, got my PhD in circuits, and then spent a few years at Intel working on integrated circuit design for bio applications before I started here at UCSD. And you'll see this in my lectures that they're a little Intel centric at times, especially early on. My office hours are going to be Friday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. They'll start next week, not tomorrow. Again, I've tried to pick a time that is better globally than somewhere in the middle of the day that works good for us on the West Coast, but works for everybody. We have 3 TAs in this class. We have Abhishek, Tyler, and Hongyu, and maybe if they could just unmute and say hi real quick.
Hello, everybody. I'm Abhishek Agarwal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tyler.
Hi, I'm Hongyu.
All right, so these are fantastic students. They all took the class last year. They all did exceptionally well, and it is absolutely in your best interest to become best friends with all 3 of these. So you should find out what their favorite things are and treat them and be extremely nice to them. Especially with all of the challenges that we're going to have doing this class remotely, I think that it's going to be an extra burden on the TAs at times throughout the quarter. So please try to be as absolutely nice to them as you can and understanding of their situation as well. So they've scattered their office hours throughout the week, some on Monday, some on Tuesday, some on Wednesday, and then again, some on Friday a little bit later to try to accommodate everybody. If we find out throughout the quarter that either my office hours or the TA office hours don't work for whatever reason, please just let us know and we will try to be as accommodating as possible to make this work for everybody. So we will have a large lab component to this class. It's one thing for me to teach you about circuit design. It's an entirely another thing for you to actually demonstrate that you know how to do circuit design. And so we're going to have a large component where you need to do circuit design and simulate the circuits and set up test benches. Thankfully, we can access all of this remotely, but it will require a little bit of extra work in terms of getting the cadence set up so that we can have access for everybody. And so we'll talk about this actually at our very first meeting next week on Wednesday. We'll focus primarily on the CAD setup for this class. My administrator is Mr. John Minnan. I don't think that you will need him at all this year. However, if you should, feel free to email him here. Normally he would hand back exams and handle those kind of administrative things, which given that we're online, we won't have that situation. We will use two websites for this. The majority of the material will be posted on Canvas. The video links are also posted there. I tend to upload the videos to YouTube just because it makes it a little bit easier to watch on different formats. If you do have issues with watching the lectures on YouTube, please let me know and I'll see if I can't accommodate them in another way. The primary way, though, to communicate with either the TAs or myself is with Piazza. We will use Piazza extensively throughout the quarter, and the TAs and myself will be very vigilant about answering your questions on Piazza. We like to use Piazza for a few reasons. One, that oftentimes it turns out that we get the same question over and over and over again, and it just becomes repetitive to answer the same question. But more importantly, I think for you, it ensures a sense of fairness for everybody that we say the answer once and everybody gets that same piece of information. So we're not giving hints to one particular student or a different student. Everybody is kind of getting the same information at the time. And so we will ask that you don't email us directly. Myself included, I don't even put the TA's emails here because I don't want you to contact them independently. I don't really want you to email me. I get lots of emails as it is, overwhelming piles of emails at times. It's better to post to Piazza because then any of us can answer and we can do so in a very responsive and fast turnaround time situation. If there is something personal or something that you don't want to post on Piazza, you can email me, but please reserve that for truly exceptional situations. The grading in this course, we're going to do as follows. We're going to have some homework. I'm going to put about 15% of the grade on the homework, and I'll talk about this lowest score in just a second. We will have a project in this course. 20% will be the project. Tentatively right now, I'm scheduled to have a midterm and a final. We'll talk about both of these in just a minute. I always get asked about plus and minus grades. I use the full dynamic range of grades. So yes, I will assign plus and I will assign minus grades. There's no textbook for this class per se. I have a couple of reference texts that I think are useful and relevant, but I don't think that you need to go out and purchase any of these books if you don't already have them. I think that the class notes are sufficient and cover all of the material that you would need to really do well in this class. That said, if you don't like the way that I deliver content or you would prefer to read out of a book, this book was written by my advisor. at Stanford, and a lot of the material is based on this. And so I think that this is probably the most closely matched to the material. Allen and Holberg is an excellent book. I think that it's covers a lot of material, maybe not quite as deep mathematically as some of the other textbooks. In particular, Gray and Meyer and Razavi, these are classical textbooks that you'll often find in this type of course. That said, you can often get bogged down in kind of the math and the details in these that don't quite have the same intuition as the Allen and Holberg book that I also like to impart on students when I teach this. As far as prerequisites are concerned, the basic idea is that you should have good knowledge of circuit analysis techniques. You should have signals and systems. Some kind of background in device physics is assumed. We'll see that kind of at the first few lectures, and then it'll dissipate as we get towards the more circuit-heavy lectures towards the end of the course. But we essentially will not review any of these materials. So in the first week or two, we're going to have a little bit of overlap of this. We're going to go deeper, but there will be some material that looks familiar, and then it's going to kick into high gear after that. And so that's really your chance as a student. If this looks like it's overwhelming or completely new material, you might want to think about how you can supplement the knowledge to get on the same footing as all of the other students. All right, very quickly before I go on, are there any questions so far on kind of course structure, organization, how we're going to do this? So there are a couple of questions that people have posted to chat, and I'll just kind of quickly answer them. One student has another lecture from Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. I think that's okay. That's just really the office hours for me. There's a lot of office hours for the TAs, and no matter what I do, I'm never going to be able to find a single time that works for everybody. So I would encourage that student to talk with the TAs, and if we do need to set up something with me, post on Piazza and we can figure out a time. Another student asked about, is there a link for Piazza or a class code? Yes, I've posted the link to Piazza on Canvas. It's right underneath the syllabus, so you should be able to click on it there. You can also go to Piazza and add it. It is listed for ECE 164. All right, any other questions before we move on? All right. All right, so this is the tentative class calendar that we're going to have in this course. Today, I want to do more or less just an introduction and overview of class logistics. Anything that's listed here in green means that it's going to be live, and it will also be recorded, but it'll be live. So you can sign on and hop on Zoom. Anything that's in black is going to be pre-recorded and have the lecture slides available on Canvas. I'll try to release them at the start of the week and kind of stay more or less a week ahead of you guys. So the first week, we're going to talk about integrated circuit technology. Next Wednesday, I'll do an introduction towards CAD, along with making sure that we can all get on to the servers. This is going to be extremely important given that we're all remote this year. Normally, we would just all pile everybody into the lab and make sure that everybody had access and there were no issues. And then what I plan on using the rest of kind of the Wednesday live examples for are primarily to do examples. And so, the 14th, I'll go over some analysis examples. Then I'll talk about design optimization and how you might approach that type of example. We'll do another design example. November, I'm going to use this to talk about, your project and then how to simulate some of the aspects of the project and do some optimization. Couple of points that we need to decide. Currently, we're trying to move the, call it the in-person component to Wednesday afternoon, because I think that aligns a little bit better with people's schedules. However, the midterm and the final are currently scheduled for Thursday and Wednesday in the morning. we may want to move this, and I'm open to and want to see how you guys feel about moving these two items around. So essentially doing the midterm on Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Instead of doing it on Thursday at 11 a.m. And so I'll think about the best way to pull the class, maybe on Piazza or maybe on Canvas. But essentially, I would like you guys to choose this. It doesn't really matter to me. The exam will be the same length. It'll be the same content. It's just that we have to do the exam live. And so for some people that are in various parts of the world, this could be extremely early in the morning or extremely late. And I would like to give them the opportunity to try to do this at a more sensible time. That said, very much like the office hour comment earlier, I fully understand that this is not going to work perfectly for everybody. So we're going to have to come to consensus. One question was, are all of the classes recorded? Yes, all of the classes are recorded. The black ones are pre-recorded, meaning that they will not be live. The green ones will be live and recorded so that they can all be watched asynchronously. So if you wanted, the only time that you have to be live is for the midterm and for the final. All right, and then we do have a holiday on November 11th. This is Veterans Day, so we won't have any class. Unfortunately, as a consolation prize, I am going to have to post the homework to kind of keep on our schedule of having homework be due on Wednesdays at 5, as well as the other homeworks going out. All right, Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving technically is only a holiday on Thursday and Friday. I think that given that you guys have the project and we will have worked very hard, I would like to give you a little bit of a break here. And so we will take an entire week of no classes. I will release the homework, but you have quite a while towards the later homeworks to do them. You know, there's basically 2 weeks here. And so you don't technically have to start on the homework if you don't want to. So going back to assignments, I will release the homeworks on Wednesdays and they will be due 1 week later on the following Wednesday, and we'll kind of just cascade. The first few weeks, we're going to do 1 homework per week. And then once the project goes out, I expect that a good portion of your time will be devoted towards the project. And so we're going to give you an extended period of time for these homeworks. And so homework 5 and homework 6, you'll have 2 weeks to do those homeworks. And then submit them. All the homework will be submitted online through Canvas. Essentially, you'll take pictures or scan in your homework and upload it to Canvas. The last week of the quarter for the live session, what we'll do is we'll do some project presentations. And so the idea here is that you will get a chance to see how all of your other colleagues approached the project and solved this problem. They will present essentially their take on how they did that. And so we'll identify and ask a few people to present their projects during this time. And then lastly, we have a final exam that's on Wednesday from 11:30 to 2:30 p.m. Again, I fully understand that this time is not ideal. So if we are able to move the midterm, I will also ask if we can move the final to a later time or an earlier time, whatever tends to work better for everybody. I'll post a handful of times probably on Piazza. All right, any questions about kind of course schedule, material?
What is the schedule for the labs?
Yeah. So the labs are integrated into the homework. And so I'll show you when I actually release the homework, but typically the homeworks will have, 5 or 6 problems total. They'll usually fit on one piece of paper front and back, which is very deceiving because they will take a long amount of time to actually do. But 2 of the problems will typically be simulation based. And so you will need to either design, simulate, or measure circuit performance, but nothing will be in-person lab. They'll all be remote simulation labs. Any other questions?
I have a question. So in order to prepare for the Wednesday discussion, do we is that based off of like the the Tuesday lecture and the Thursday lecture from the week before, or the Thursday lecture from that week?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's up to you guys. I'm happy to answer questions from the next lecture. I'm also happy to answer questions from the previous lecture. I just want to make sure that you have some opportunity to ask questions about the lecture and that you're not just getting all of this material shoved down your throat. I think either one is fine to answer your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I should say that, I don't particularly like pre-recording the lectures for a couple of reasons. One, I tend to just go through the material rather quickly. Whereas if you're giving the lecture in class live, there's an opportunity to stop, ask questions, clarify points, and it kind of, you pace me in a sense of going through the material. And so most of the lectures that I post, they won't be the full hour and 20 minutes. They historically have taken an hour and 20 minutes when I deliver them in class, but a lot of that is that there's questions and comments and we have discussions that's a little bit harder to do in the pre-recorded fashion. So I fully expect that there is questions on Wednesday from you. We should not be shy. We should get all of these things clarified. The absolute worst thing in the world would be if you guys didn't ask any questions and we got all the way to the end and we had lots of questions. That said, if there is no questions on the Wednesday during the live office hours, I will have some examples to do that we can work through together. We don't necessarily have to do them. And if we run out of time, that's fine. We just won't do them. Any other questions? All right, so some frequently asked questions. I always get asked about homework policy, in particular late homework policy. All of the homework will be due at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, turned in on Canvas. We will not accept any late homework. However, I understand that things come up throughout the quarter, and especially this quarter where we're doing things all remotely. The way that I'm going to deal with this is not to try to accept late homework, but instead I'm just going to drop the lowest homework score. And so if you don't, for example, turn in homework 1 for whatever reason, we will just compute your homework score based on homeworks 2 through homework 6. Similarly, if you turn in all of the homeworks, but you didn't do quite as well on one of the homeworks, we will just drop the lowest score. And so you don't need to email us. You don't need to tell us anything about this. It's just, we'll compute this and we'll drop your lowest score. Your lowest score could be a 0. I often get asked how long you should be spending on the homework and studying. Talking to former students, I would say that this is considered a tough class. And you should plan on spending at least about 10 hours a week outside of class on the homework and other material. This is in addition to the lecture times that I'm talking about. In particular, the project is just a lot of, the project is going to take time. And that's why if we look at the schedule, the project goes out in November 4th and it's not due for another month. The project is not typically something that you can finish in a weekend or cramming 2 days before. It really is going to take a lot of effort to do that. And so I'll encourage you and remind you to start early on that. Can you collaborate on the homework? Can you work with somebody else? Yeah, absolutely. This class is difficult. I think that you can learn a lot by discussing with your colleagues and going over the homework together. I absolutely don't mind that. That said, we will look at the uploads and make sure that they are unique in the sense that, we don't have one scanned PDF that gets uploaded for everybody in the course. So you need to write your own homework and you can't just photocopy other people's homework. Okay. And really, the homework, I would say, is for you. The homework is your chance to demonstrate and practice this material in a relatively low stress situation before we get to the exams. So the exams are the way of actually assessing whether or not you know this material. The homework is your chance to practice this and to really dig in and make sure that you understand this. Circuits, analysis and design. If you remember back to when you learned how to do factoring, it reminds me a lot of learning factoring when I was in elementary school. It just takes practice. You have to do this a whole bunch of times in order to get good at it. And once you do this enough, you start to realize patterns, you start to kind of get the feel of things, and it becomes very natural and second nature. If you're doing this for the first time on an exam and you've never tried to actually do these problems or copied other students' homework, you will struggle mightily with the exams. I can promise that. There's a lot of talk about homework helper sites, Course Hero, Chegg, etc. I would say that you should absolutely not use these. These sites are very predatory on you as students. Uploading to them and getting content from them is considered an academic integrity violation. I do not want to have to report anybody. However, if we find any instances of people using these types of materials, we will report you to the Academic Integrity Office. For undergraduate students, this can have a variety of different sanctions ranging from training to you can actually get expelled or kicked out in very flagrant cases. For graduate students, it's much more severe. It's one instance and you're done. So again, please do not use these. Do not put anybody in this type of situation. It's just not a good situation for anybody. How will we check the integrity of the homework? We're not going to run the homework through any kind of Turnitin like material, but the TAs and the grader, when they look at this, if they find similarity between homeworks or inconsistency with previous homeworks, at our discretion, we will start dropping those homeworks, and you will receive 0 points on the entire homework. This will be one of the scores that you cannot drop in your homework. And if we find really, really flagrant cases, we'll go ahead and submit those to academic integrity as well. So Cadence, we will be using Cadence for all of the simulations in this lab. You will have access to these tools virtually. I will spend some time next week going over exactly how to get access to them. We will not be able to support any other CAD programs. And there is a tutorial that's posted on Canvas already about how to work through Cadence if you are not familiar with it. And even if you are familiar with it, I would encourage you to go through. There are often PDK or process design kit nuances that depend on individual PDKs that you may not have seen before. Also, there's some advanced analysis techniques that we'll use later on in this course. As part of homework 1, you will also have to work through this tutorial. So if you want to take a look at it early, you can get a head start on that. What should you do if you're having problems with your simulations? Inevitably, I think that throughout this quarter, everybody will have at least some problem with their simulation. It's not set up right. It's not simulating. Something is going wrong. This is really what the TA office hours are for. They're scattered throughout the week. They're typically held physically in the lab. This time we're going to have to do it over Zoom and figure out how to make this work. But this is a time when you can get on there and the TAs can walk you through and help you with any of these problems specifically related to the cadence issues. We'll talk a little bit more about the midterm and the final later on. Okay, so taking the final at a different time, I don't think that we want to get into this, so I'm going to do my absolute best to find a time that works for everybody. This is typically only allowed if you have a demonstrable academic scheduling conflict, i.e. with another course. Being able to catch cheaper flights for your vacation, or that it's at 2 a.m., or that it's late at night, we're going to try to address those very early on. And I want to do that in the next week or so that we can have consensus on when the exams are so that you know. I won't change the dates of the exams once we get agreement on that so that everybody can schedule appropriately. We'll talk more about midterm and final regrades. If you can't attend my office hours, you can always email me or post on Piazza and we can figure out a time that works for you. Academic misconduct, as I mentioned earlier, we have a zero tolerance policy towards academic dishonesty. We will strictly enforce this. This includes cheating, plagiarism, and collusion. If you're not familiar with the UCSD policy, you can find out about this here. I will just say that I've been on the Academic Integrity Review Board for the past 4 or 5 years. And so I've gotten to hear the very interesting ways that students cheat or collude or plagiarize things. I hope that I don't have to send any of you guys there. It's not fun for me. It's not fun for you. It basically is not a good situation all around. So we can just avoid a lot of that and not have to deal with this. For the projects, we will upload your project reports that you have to write and to turn it in. This is to look for plagiarism against both previous year submission as well as all of your colleagues. And then lastly, if you have an AFA letter, you need to give that to me at least 2 weeks prior to any exam. This is something that you should email to me directly and not post on Piazza. All right, with that said, we've covered the majority of what I wanted to talk about. There's a few other things, but are there any questions about the syllabus, logistics, how we're going to run the course, expectations? All right.
Sorry, question.
Yeah.
So for the midterm and final, you mentioned that we can use calculators. Are we allowed to use graphing calculators, or do you specify a more basic calculator?
No, graphing calculators are fine. And one of the things that I'm considering, and that's why I don't want to dwell on it too much right now, typically when I do the midterm and the final, you can bring a cheat sheet, and this cheat sheet is one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that has what you think are salient kind of points from the lectures. Personally, myself and from other students, I always feel that the value is not in having the cheat sheet itself. It's that you've made the cheat sheet and that essentially forced you to review the material and prepare for it. Given that we are doing the exams remotely this year, I'm tempted to just open it up to all of the lecture slides should you want, but I need to think about this a little bit more and work on the logistics. This is my first time administering finals or exams remotely, and so I'm not quite sure how I want to do this yet. I want to make this as fair for everybody as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? All right.
I just had a quick question. Would the labs at school still be open, or are they shut?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back to you. I will find that out.
All right,
typically, we have a lab that's reserved, and we have specific times that are for our class. I don't know if it is open or not. I'll find out.
All right, thank you.
One of your colleagues wants to talk about the project. I think that it's a little too early to talk about the project. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. Yeah. All right, so there is one other thing that you need to do sooner rather than later. And Sorry, I'm moving screens around on Zoom here. All right, as part of this class, we're going to use a real PDK. So a PDK is what's called a process design kit. If you are out in industry, these are technologies that are developed and they are proprietary to particular companies. And so one of the things that we have to do in this course is we have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so essentially what this non-disclosure agreement says is that you are going to be given access to proprietary material. This is in the form of the parameters of the transistors, some documentation. Basically, whenever we do simulations, you will do them not with some fake technology, but with a real technology that is actually used most prevalently in the semiconductor industry today. And so this is both good and bad. It's good in the sense that you are getting very real world experience and you're getting to access a technology that that's very relevant. However, this has some restrictions in the sense that one, we can't share this information publicly. Like we can't take these parameters and we can't post them on Piazza. We can't post them on other forums or websites. And this agreement is meant to protect that and say that we are not going to do that, that you understand that you cannot post this proprietary material. This also has some implications, as I'll talk about in class, where in the lecture slides, I can't post, things like IV curves, current versus voltage curves of these transistors, because that would be disclosing proprietary information. I can't tell you like what the threshold voltage is. I can't tell you exactly what the output impedance, all of these technology dependent parameters. And so I will use similar, but typically a little bit different parameters when I post them in the lecture slides. Part of what you will do in the homework is actually extract these parameters for this technology. So what you need to do is you need to fill out this form and you need to sign it and then upload it in two places. One, this needs to get uploaded to Canvas. There's a 0 non-graded assignment that's there. Don't worry about the witness aspect. I forgot. We typically have witnesses that have to see this. We don't need the witness this year. Put your name, sign, and date. Upload this to Canvas. And then on the assignment, there's also instructions of another person that you need to email a copy of this to in order to get access to the technology. So I just have a receipt that you've signed this. Miriam, who you will email a copy of this to, she's actually the one that can grant you access to this. You will not be able to do homeworks or the project without signing this form and emailing it to her. She controls that gate. We have to have this signed. And so that's why, even though the homework is not out yet, I've posted this already so that we can start this and you're not waiting on getting access before we can actually do the homework. Any questions about this NDA?
Does this limit who we can ask homework help from if the homework involves such transistors?
No, I mean, I don't think that you would ask specific detailed questions about the technology itself to other people. And certainly within the class, you can talk to anyone because presumably they will have all signed the NDA at that point. But, certainly like taking the files off of the server and posting them to, EDA forums or any other public website would be a violation of this NDA. And they absolutely could come after you personally for doing that.
So like asking questions to other professors or something who aren't necessarily with this class would be all right.
All of the UCSD circus professors have undoubtedly signed this about 50 times.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
I get tired of signing this. I have to sign it so many times. So yeah, other questions? All right, maybe just a few other quick comments. One, the class is structured right now with kind of these asynchronous lectures during the regular time and the live lectures during Wednesday. I tried to poll students ahead of time to get a sense of, would this work? What would you guys prefer? And as you might expect, you poll enough students and you just get a random distribution. Some students prefer them all to be live. Some students prefer none of it to be live. They all wanted asynchronous. I've tried to blend what I think is the best of both worlds and do this kind of approach. However, if for whatever reason we find out as we go along throughout the quarter that it's not working for whatever reason, please let me know and we can try to figure out a better solution. I'm not married to doing it this way. I'm trying to do the best with the situation that I can that helps everybody and works. There likely will be a few rough spots throughout the quarter, whether it's related to homework, exams, lectures. I think that this is just a tough situation for everybody. I was hopeful that we would be back in person during the fall, and clearly that did not happen. I very much prefer being in front of all of you and seeing you guys live and asking questions and interacting. And it's a little bit harder to do that when you're just lecturing to a computer that's not stopping you or pacing you in any sense. So I would just ask for your patience as we work through this course together. And then the last thing is on Piazza. Please do use Piazza etiquette in the sense that, first make sure that you search that other people haven't asked that question. Part of the reason why the TAs and myself like Piazza is that we answer a question and we do a really good job of answering that question. But if we have to answer that same question again 40 times, it kind of defeats the purpose of having Piazza where we can see all of these questions. Two, I will be on the TAs, and they know this, about responding quickly. Historically, I would say that our response time for any question at the end of the quarter was less than 20 minutes. And so this doesn't matter if the question was asked at 2 a.m., if it was asked at 6 a.m. or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, the average response time is 20 minutes. We will work very, very hard to make this the ideal place for you to get information and questions answered very quickly. That said, we also want you guys to be able to search and make sure that the question hasn't been answered and to put them in the proper kind of threads. And then if somebody does answer your question, mark it as resolved, because we often sort by unresolved questions. If you're not familiar with using Piazza, when you ask a question, it lets the poster choose resolved or unresolved. If somebody did answer your question, please click resolved so that we know that that's done and there's not further follow-on questions to that. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. Do you guys have any other questions about this? No? All right, well, welcome to ECE 164, and I hope that we all have a great quarter. I will see you guys next Wednesday, and I'll post the Zoom link on Canvas for where we'll meet. Thanks, bye.
Thank you.